Whoa, cotton candy? That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I don't know, lass. I think it could be better. I've seen better dancing.
Okay, come on now. That's not cool, man. It's great. Give them the praise that they deserve.
Look, it's not like I'm saying it's terrible. I just don't see in it what you do.
Well, I think you're crazy. He's still been going the entire time, hasn't he?
Yeah, actually, he has. Okay, you know what? You're right. Doing that for this long is pretty impressive. Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, with all the fun and cool things going on, it seems like I hear people changing their favorite monster just all the time. One day it's Namiel, then it's Runer, then Stygian and Ogre, then who knows what else. But there are so many monsters in this series, so many legitimately fantastic monsters, that a number of them wind up just left by the wayside and honestly, in my opinion, not given the respect or love that they absolutely deserve. So today, ladies and gentlemen, is my list of the top 5 underrated monsters in Monster Hunter, with the only real qualifier being that these are monsters that I think the community as a whole should love a whole lot more than they do. Starting off then with
Honorable Mention. Dodogama.
Yes, I know, a lot of people love Dodogama, like a lot of people, probably even the majority of people, but I think I heard someone, just one person, just this one time, said that they didn't like him, and that's too much. Dodogama should be loved by every single human on this planet. He is perfect, and therefore this makes him underrated.
That is great. I like the delivery because I felt your anger.
Okay, I promise it'll be a little bit more serious from here on out. Starting with
Number 5. Paolumu.
the big airbag bat himself. That's right. I think that Paolumu is completely underrated. I love this little guy, and maybe part of it is just my appreciation of all things that are soft and pink, like my hair, obviously. He takes advantage of wind attacks, but in significantly less annoying ways than most monsters, like Congalala as an example, and to do this, he puffs up like a beautiful fucking air balloon, but he also has tons of attacks based around his beaver-like tail, especially in Master Rank, his new move, where he pinballs up harder than a Rajang in an 80s arcade. But even with how he was in high rank, I think a lot of people just sort of swept him aside. He is early enough in the game that there isn't really much of a big deal made of him in the story, and also a low enough tier that he didn't really pop up in the end game of Monster Hunter World a whole lot, as fighting him didn't really give great rewards if you weren't specifically after his parts. That combined with his face, I guess, as some people, I suppose, don't find bat faces quite as cute as others. But don't listen to them, Paolumu. You're beautiful. Ignore them. Shut them out.
Bitch, don't tell me what to do!
But I think he is a very much particularly unique and interesting fight, even if you don't like his visuals, even though he may not be the most difficult monster in the world. Personally, I love Paolumu, and I think more people should too.
Number 4.
Bring out your dead! Bring out your dead! Here's one. Ninepence. I'm not dead!
Vaal Hazak.
Like regular Vaal Hazak though, not Black Veil, not at all. I think Black Veil Vaal Hazak is far more beloved by the fanbase as a whole because of his whole spore type deal that everyone loves that kind of design. I mean, come on. And as if for not any other reason, his fight is just far more challenging and interesting as a whole. Regular Vaal Hazak through the endgame of base world became sort of a joke fight, simply the most reliable way to farm high-end decorations. A 5-box tempered Vaal Hazak quest was absolute liquid gold in those terms, and I think this really soiled his fight in a lot of people's minds. But what is really important to remember is exactly why this was the case. Val's fight was not easy as a base, not by any means. In fact, he was arguably one of the most frustrating monsters there was, but there's a little skill that goes by the name of miasma resistance that just completely trivializes the entire experience. Without his miasma actually cutting your health in half every once in a while, he's just a particularly slow, ground-based dragon with a damaging aura, and it taints it, because without it, he is at least somewhat of a challenge, and the fact that effluvial resistance is a skill that you basically had to have to fight him properly, as it was just a ridiculous pain otherwise, should really speak to that end. Visually and general design-wise, Vaal Hazak is just one of the darkest, edgiest monsters of all time, a being who wears the skin of fallen monsters, and has formed a symbiotic relationship with flesh-eating bacteria. I mean, come on, that's just fucking awesome. It's not necessarily that I think the community actively dislikes Vaal Hazak either, I just don't think people appreciate appreciate him enough as a whole, and he really deserves a bit more love than he gets.
Number 3.
É vantagem brasileira, pode dar vantagem seu juiz. Dá vantagem que não bater.
Volvidon.
Volvidon, oh Volvidon. Yes, his roly-poly armadillo bear chameleon is just a tip-top design idea. And yes, that is an accurate list of the real-life animal bits that come together to form this monster as he lives and breathes. The tongue of a chameleon, long, sticky, and whippy. The shell of an armadillo. The rolling ability of a roly-poly. And the just sort of general shape of a bear. And he just makes me happy to see, honestly. Even just from a visual standpoint, he's beautiful. But that is before you even get to his interesting and unique fight, which I actually love as well. He plays around a lot with rolling mechanics, but in much less annoying ways than more prominent rolling monsters like Uragon, for example. He doesn't really roll at you from off camera unless you're just really not spitting to face him very often, as when he rolls past you, he doesn't often come rolling back too fast to react to.
You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. What?
Which removes a lot of the frustration from rolling moves for me. He has his whippy tongue attacks, which are fun and add some neat variety to his moveset. He has paralysis spit, which again just adds another layer, as this gives him a secondary ranged attack option in the front. He also has the ability to expel gas that applies the soil status, which in the old style games made you unable to use any items except for the item that removed the status, the deodorant. This fight just has so much variety to it, and his general design is fantastic. And as a little side tidbit in Monster Hunter Explorer, they actually have a variant called Christmas Volvidon, who is literally just Volvidon in a Santa Claus costume, and it just makes me so inexplicably happy that they did this. Honestly, I just want more people to love him so he has a higher chance of being brought to the new world someday, as a new world Volvidon would be amazing. His shell and his stomach coloring too, at high detail, would just look great, and I imagine his fight would just flow so beautifully in our updated game engine. But just in general, I never hear anyone but me actually talk about Volvidon. Maybe I'm the only one who likes how he looks, maybe I'm the only one who likes the way he fights, but by Cogmasios, I absolutely love him as a whole, and therefore, in my opinion, he is totally the third most underrated monster of all time.
Number 2. Congalala.
This monster was originally introduced to me by Josh as my spirit monster, and for good goddamn reason, honestly. The pinkness obviously is a positive for me, and that is always a factor, but I love his face. He's just so into everything he does. His nails are all manicured, and his hair is all styled up too, like he's trying to impress someone. He just exudes a sort of confidence that logically we all know he probably shouldn't have, but like, that is something we should all aspire to. Congalala is a good role model in life, is basically what I'm saying. He's a little chunky, which I love, and he actually looks super soft too. And of course, yes, he has the best butt. I could write an entire essay about his butt, and why I think butt crack should be more noticeable on most monsters for pure comic relief during tense fight moments, but that is a conversation for another time. His actual fight then is pretty neat. He has a lot of claw swipes and charge attacks, but one of his best features is his stomach, which he will happily use to try and smush you. And when his stomach is inflated, it actually makes your attacks bounce off of it, which is just a fantastic little bonus feature. His real signature attack, though, is his farting. He is probably the biggest proponent of the soiled status, and he will not hesitate at any point to just let one rip. In fact, an interesting little bonus note is that Congalala uniquely falls face first into pitfall traps, in which he is still liable to fart even when incapacitated, which again just shows his pure grit and determination. I love it. The Congalala will also use his tail to pick up and hold mushrooms of various types depending on his environment, and eating them actually gives him the ability to do a breath attack of varying types, depending of course on the type of mushroom he ate. I love mechanics like this. It really adds an extra layer of not only character but variety to a fight, as each different zone can potentially have a different aspect of the fight to be aware of. In one zone maybe it's paralysis, but in another it could be sleep or fire or poison. It is just a really neat thing to have going on. If, however, you break his tail, he throws his feces at you, like a true buffoon of a baboon, applying the soil effect. What I love about this is the implication that he is so resourceful that the second his tail isn't in the way, he doesn't hesitate for a moment to pick up a new fighting technique. Man, sometimes you think you love a monster, but you don't really realize how much until you just sit down and talk about them for a while. And Congalala, honestly, buddy, you are significantly underappreciated. You are one of my all-time favorites, and not enough people love you as much as I do.
Number 1.
2,000 pounds of stampeding muscle, and the man who could ride him from hell into history. Now, this exciting adventure is yours to see on the big screen. Buffalo Rider, rated PG.
Duramboros.
Okay, this one is sort of a sellout option for me, I guess, as Duramboros is just straight up my favorite monster of all time. So pretty much no matter what the community thoughts on him were, I would consider him underrated for sure. Starting off just from an initial visual design perspective, God, oh, where do I start? This is like trying to describe your favorite song to someone without having the ability to play it for them. He is a camel-cow hybrid that is also for some reason a dinosaur in the brute wyvern shape, and hey, the brute wyverns are just straight up my favorite monster type. So that already gives him a bonus, as I seriously enjoy fighting those kinds of monsters, and his fight is no different. He has moss growing on his humps. And his face looks so peaceful. He seems so happy, so tranquil, like he just enjoys life, you know? And who can't get behind that?
His easy smile makes me think everything is okay, even when I know it ain't.
His fight then is where it really takes off, like literally, he takes off. He spins whirlwind style and flies up into the fucking sky like a helicopter to attack you with massive momentum. This attack is gorgeous, and a monster this size has no right to do something so agile and silly looking, and it just, as a large human myself, I feel such a strong bond with him, you know? He just calls to me on a spiritual level, on which note, he actually is just sort of factually the spirit animal of the hammer. I mean, his tail is a massive blunt instrument he uses as his main offense. He spins like the hammer, and he has his own fun with the aerial moves too. He's so large and lumbering, yet so quick and agile, and the entire time, every second, no matter what he's doing, he looks happy and at peace, and that's just it, you know? When I fight him, I just feel better about everything. He makes me happy every single time I see him, and there's not a whole lot more praise I think I can really give a monster than that. And the thing is, I know how much I love him. I acknowledge how much I love him on a semi-daily basis, but then every single time I see him, I swear to Christ, I just love him that little bit more. It's just that feeling that I wish everyone else could feel too, you know? I don't think he is actively disliked by anyone really, but I honestly think that even just a vague, he's cool type of rating just isn't anywhere close to high enough for him. This guy is seriously underrated. He hasn't made it to the new world yet, but by God, I hope he does. I need to see him in full glorious high definition textures. I need to watch him just walk around and exist as an animal, eating grass or drinking water. I don't care. I just want him around. I just want it so much, you know? I miss him every day, and the next time I fight him is never soon enough. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been my list of the top 5 underrated monsters in the Monster Hunter series. Do you agree with my choices? What other monsters would you say are underrated? Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes when they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or report important news about the kingdom Animalia. Rage, Cotton, and Hollow are all here, talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros, there's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.